Investigators began searching for explosive materials in the wreckage of the Russian aircraft that crashed in Sinai as Egypt's president visits London amid high tensions due to differing assessments of the incident. U.S. Defense Secretary Ashton Carter tours an American warship in the disputed South China Sea, a move Beijing slams as provocation. And Myanmar's opposition leader Aung San Suu Kyi raises the stakes ahead of the country's upcoming historic election, saying she will be, quote, above the president if her party wins.
The News Today with Lucy Aharish.
Good evening and welcome to the News Today. The team investigating the crash of a Russian airliner in Sinai is set to begin examining whether any explosive materials were on board the plane. The Islamic State has claimed responsibility for downing the craft. If so, the terror group's capabilities may be greater than previously thought. I-24 News military correspondent Shai Ben-Ari has the story.
A timely visit abroad. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi is in the United Kingdom and on Thursday met with British Prime Minister David Cameron at number 10 Downing Street. The meeting came as tensions between the two countries hit a high point over differing assessments of the Russian plane crash in the Sinai Peninsula, which killed 224 people. Sisi's visit was scheduled before the incident occurred.
What happened is a tragic airline incident with millions of flights every day. You are bound to have an incident here or there.
While the Egyptians are eager to downplay any potential link to terrorism, the UK is concerned with the safety of British tourists, for whom the Sinai resort of Sharm el-Sheikh is a popular destination. Flights between Sinai and the UK have been temporarily suspended. The current assessment of a number of Western intelligence agencies is that a bomb was likely planted on the plane. This conclusion is derived from several factors. The Islamic State terror group Sinai branch claimed responsibility for the crash on the same day, which many initially wrote off as propaganda.
We've looked at all the information available, including this public claim by ISIL, but also other information and including secret intelligence information that we have.
U.S. defense officials noted that various internal messages between IS militants in Sinai were intercepted following the crash and are more significant than the public declarations. Pentagon officials also told American media that satellites had picked up heat flashes in Sinai at the time of the incident, possibly indicating an explosion. They also expressed concern over activity by Sinai militants in the days prior to the crash, but that this was not enough to lead to direct preemptive action by U.S. authorities.
Честно говоря, по-настоящему шокирует осознание того, что значит у британского правительства есть какая-то информация, которая может пролить свет на то, что же произошло в небе над Египтом. И получается, что эту информацию никто российской стороне не передал. Вот это по-настоящему шокирует.
If an explosive device was indeed planted on the plane, it was probably done at Sharm el-Sheikh airport in Sinai before takeoff. Shortly before his meeting with the Egyptian president, Cameron criticized security measures on the ground there.
If that Russian airliner was brought down by a terrorist bomb, that does have very real implications, and it means it's absolutely essential that we see that improvement of security at Sharm el-Sheikh airport.
We are completely ready to cooperate with all our friends to make sure that the security measures taken at our airport provide the safety and security needed for the people who come to us.
No less than 20,000 British tourists are estimated to currently be in Sharm el-Sheikh. For the time being, they are stranded there, but the British Transport Secretary said Thursday he hoped to resume flights by Friday.
And with me here in the studio is Ali Wakad, Senior Middle East Analyst. Good evening. And also I-24 News military correspondent Shai Ben-Ari. Good evening.
Good evening.
So the investigation is still ongoing. What are the latest developments?
Right. Really, I think it'll begin to get interesting now that this is the assessment that a bomb was likely planted on the plane, perhaps taking advantage of the situation at Sharm el-Sheikh airport, where there have been numerous reports of faulty and lax security, inconsistencies in security checks, that kind of thing. There's also the possibility that the planners had someone in the airport security staff who was something of an accomplice, maybe someone on the inside. The Islamic Islamic State Sinai branch has support from some of the Bedouins that are native, of course, to Sinai. Many of these work in Sharm el-Sheikh. They live in the north, and they come southwards to work. This is also one of the reasons that the Islamic State has refrained up till now from attacking Sharm el-Sheikh directly. Even this attack was basically targeting, of course, Russian targets, yes. Potential attack at this stage still, and not targeting the Egyptian authorities, which we know there's an ongoing struggle between Egypt and the Islamic State in Sinai. Besides the fact there is, of course, a large military presence around and inside Sharm el-Sheikh, up till now they have refrained from actually attacking directly. This would be a change, of course.
We've been struggling with the question if IS truly has big capabilities or bigger capabilities than we thought until now. Is it a possibility?
Lucy, I don't think that this incident, even with the fact that more than 200 people were killed, reflects any special capacity of the Islamic State. If it is a bomb, you need to pass the bomb from the northern part of Sinai, where the stronghold of the Islamic State, to the southern part of Sinai, Sharm el-Sheikh region. But this is also the issue, because going from Al Arish or Sheikh Zweid and the region where the Islamic State is strong to reach Sharm el-Sheikh for hundreds of kilometers, passing through dozens of security checkpoints, and succeeding to infiltrate the bomb and give it to the complice, because now the assessment that somebody from the security of the airport was a part of this plan is a very strong one. The Egyptians are doing everything. The investigation of the Egyptians, despite the fact that everybody is denying for the moment that this is the scenario, the Egyptians are investigating deep with every member of the staff working on the ground. They are checking the list of every name and the family relation and business relation and other relation of every member working in the airport, because this is now the assessment that the bomb was infiltrated by someone who worked in the airport to the plan. Since we very early excluded the possibility of a missile, and since there is a unanimity that there was a terror intervention that caused the incident, the bomb is now the highest option, and bringing a bomb into the airport, into a plan, mean that somebody from inside collaborated with the Islamic State. You
started talking about the intervention of the British forces in the Sinai Peninsula in all the fight against IS. Where does it put Britain coming when Abdel Fattah al-Sisi is coming in this specific time? Although the meeting was scheduled before, where does it put Britain right now in this current situation?
It was a bit uncomfortable, I'm sure, for David Cameron. You know, he had a presser with the Egyptian president, and the reporters were trying to make it as uncomfortable as possible between the two of them. They were very correct. They were very official, and they weren't getting into the dirty details. But certainly, the UK is very concerned with the safety of its tourists. Basically, 20,000 people currently in Sharm el-Sheikh alone, British people I'm talking about. That's a huge number. So obviously, the concern is there when you talk about the British. But to mention really the style of IS attacks, this is something of a departure. The Islamic State, especially in Iraq and in Syria, is mainly concerned with conquering territory. Also in Sinai, it is basically a conflict over territory or a control of certain parts of the Sinai Desert against the Egyptians. This is more of an Al-Qaeda sort of hallmark, these kinds of attacks that attack planes or tourists, or attacks that are classic terrorist attacks against major targets like this, like a plane. Still, I think the assessment that it is an Islamic State in the Sinai Peninsula being responsible, it sounds the most logical conclusion at this point.
I want to let's talk and extend this the intervention, like Shai said, of the British forces and Britain in the fight against IS. It seems that you said they're not how you put it, they're not dirty. They're not putting themselves dirty in this fight, and it seems that they, unlike other parts, they are staying clean for now. They will keep it clean until when?
The British Parliament took a decision not to intervene in the war against the Islamic State, and David Cameron tried to reduce to the minimum at least the public aspect of the intervention of the British in this war. This is why in the Islamic State we are not hearing them speaking about British. They speak about Russia. They say that the day of the the attack of the plane was the first day after the day of 1 year when the Islamic State in the Ansar Bayt al-Maqdis in Sinai pledged allegiance to the Caliph Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, and that the Egyptian branch became officially part of the Islamic State. And they are saying that this is the beginning of the campaign against the Russians. They are inviting, of course, the investigators to open the black books, to understand that it is not an accident, that it is something well planned by the Islamic State. As we said, they are even hinting that this is the September 11 of the Russians, and this is very interesting. If somebody helped the captain of the jet to crash it down, despite
the rules of the game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, gentlemen, thank you very, very much for this. And we're still in the same region. The complexity of the situation in Syria seems to be growing. According to reports, Russia, once a staunch supporter of Assad, is forging ties with opposition groups. This comes amid reports that Iranian troops are refusing to fight on behalf of the regime. More in the next report.
Russia's involvement in war-torn Syria continues. The question now is on which side Moscow stands in the conflict, with Assad and his forces or the opposition and rebel fighters. The U.S. has long denounced the Kremlin's support for the Syrian regime.
Moscow has cynically tried to claim that its strikes are focused on terrorists, but so far 85 to 90% of Syrian strikes have hit the moderate Syrian opposition, and they have killed civilians in the process.
But on Thursday, comments by Russian officials suggested a potential shift in policy.
I can confirm that at present we are intensifying our work with the Syrian opposition.
Despite this, the Russian Foreign Ministry said it was aware of any plans for its officials to meet members of the Free Syrian Army in Abu Dhabi next week. The FSA also dismissed the reports. Meanwhile, another of Assad's staunch supporters may be waning in its commitment. According to reports, Iranian Revolutionary Guard commanders are refusing to fight in Syria and have been charged with treason. Nevertheless, battles on the ground are ongoing. The U.S.-led coalition conducted 23 airstrikes on Wednesday as Russia sent anti-aircraft missiles to Syria to protect its jets. Perhaps then, the following best summarizes the current crisis. A lot of talk, some diplomatic chess play, but no end to the fighting in sight.
And with me right now here in the studio is Mayor Javed Anfar, Iranian politics analyst. Good evening.
Good evening, Lucy.
So, Mayor, let's try to understand, because for me, from this side, it seems that the Russians are starting to teach the Iranians how to play chess all over again.
Well, the Russians are now saying that Bashar al-Assad doesn't have to stay, as part of a final solution to this problem. He could go. The Iranians have a different position. This is all public. But maybe the Iranians are playing hardball in negotiations, and the Russians are the good cop, bad cop here. Just as some people in Iran believe that during nuclear negotiations, Obama was playing the good cop and Netanyahu was playing the bad cop, yes, in order to extract concessions here. So it is possible that the Iranians are just playing that role. But if they are serious about Assad not going, which is also a possibility, because they're very worried about the Saudis. They don't want to give an inch to the Saudis because domestically it doesn't go well in Iran after the recent Hajj disaster. So, it's at the beginning of the negotiations, but I have to say that reports coming out say that the first round of negotiations were very tough between Iran and Saudis, with Iranian Foreign Minister Zarif accusing the Saudis for 9/11, which didn't go. Apparently the room went quiet.
This is big, but I'm trying to, let's try to imagine, me and you, that we are in this room of the negotiation. What will satisfy the Saudis that they will accept the Iranians being part of this?
But it seems the Saudis are also playing very hardball. The Saudis see Iran on the border with Iraq. They see Iran on the border with Yemen. They see Iran on the border with Syria. Ayatollah Khamenei calling for the overthrow of the Saudi regime. And of course, the Saudis are supporting groups that are killing Shiites, which makes it easier for Iran to come in.
Against.
You know, the things that are going on in Yemen, for example, you know, the attacks that kill civilians, there's an embargo. The Saudis don't make life easy for themselves either. They have valid security concern, but they don't make life easy for themselves either. They give room for the Iranians opportunity to come in. It seems that they don't want any vestige of Iranian influence left there whatsoever. All the Iranian forces have to leave. According to the British foreign minister, that's not possible at the moment.
With this big of animosity between the two sides, do you see any situation that the Iranians and the Saudis will accept at the end of the day any side to be part of the final solution of Syria?
Let me say something that's going to sound a little bit unconventional. I think it's easier for Rouhani to reach a deal with America than to reach a deal with the Saudis.
Wow.
There's a lot of luggage. There's a lot of, from the past, the Iran-Arab rivalry, the Sunni-Shia rivalry, and in Iran today, you know, it's become. Many Iranians believe that the Saudis basically, you know, were complicit in the killing of all those Iranian pilgrims. It's very difficult in Iran today between the government and the regime in order to improve relations with the Saudis. Rouhani wants to improve relations with the Saudis, but his room for maneuver is tiny. It is tiny. So I think this is the big issue here. I think these negotiations are more difficult now because the Saudis are in the room. And I think this is why, unfortunately, those of us who want a solution to Syria anytime soon are going to have to wait because of, you know, we bringing all this Iran-Saudi animosity, which is very big.
You are not ending the week in a positive note.
This is the Middle East. I'm used to it.
Thank you very much for this. Israel returned the body of a Palestinian terrorist Wednesday evening who was killed after seriously injuring an Israeli policeman in a car ramming attack. This comes as the Palestinian Authority filed an official complaint with the United Nations accusing Israel of harvesting organs from such bodies. In response, Jerusalem's ambassador to the UN described the allegations an anti-Semitic blood label. And I'm joined right now by Daniel Ziri, I-24 News New York correspondent. Daniel, what can you tell us about the Palestinian move at the UN?
Yes, good evening, Lucy. Indeed, a lot of controversy around this accusation made against Israel at the UN. A few days ago, on November 3rd, the ambassador of Palestine to the UN, Riyad Mansour, sends this letter that I have here in my hands, a 3-page letter to the Security Council of the United Nations. And in the bottom of this letter, I would say quite buried in it, bottom of page 2, there's a quote that I think, I should quote for you. This is what raised a lot of eyebrows when people read this letter. He says, after returning the seized bodies of the Palestinians killed by the occupying forces through October and following medical examinations, it has been reported that the bodies were returned with missing organs. Apparently, according to Ambassador Riyad Mansour, Israel is harvesting the organs of Palestinian people killed over the past month. You might imagine that the Israeli reaction didn't take very long to arrive. Ambassador of Israel to the United Nations, Dani Danon, who was newly appointed, called Riyad Mansour out on his lies, he said. He talked about anti-Semitism, said this is unacceptable at the UN, and of course called Ban Ki-moon, the Secretary General, to condemn these accusations and condemn the incitement, that according to him, Palestinian incitement towards Israel and at the UN.
Yes, thank you very much, Danielle. And with me right now to understand what are the moves exactly that the Palestinians are doing right now is Avi Sakharov, Middle East analyst. Good evening.
Good evening, Lucy.
So while the Palestinians are all over the place, the Palestinian Authority is going and appealing and putting some papers on the UN's table. They don't have anything more interesting or more relevant to do?
Well, if you have any offerings to them what to do, I think they will be very happy to hear, because I don't think that they have anything to do right now. I mean, it's pretty obvious that President Mahmoud Abbas is not interested in a third intifada or a full-scale escalation. And he's looking for some kind of a miracle, for a solution that will change his own political situation and will change the political situation vis-a-vis Israel.
Avi, is he really looking for some kind of a miracle, or he is, for now, just said, you know what, let them party, I am not part of it anymore?
You know what, he is still part of it, and he's still doing all kinds of actions on the ground in order to prevent escalation. The bottom line here is that it's quite mysterious for me, because it seems that it's obvious for the PA that there's not going to be any progress with Israel about negotiations, about a peace agreement. And on the other hand, he's not interested in intifada. So he finds himself in a kind of an awkward situation in which he needs to preserve the situation as is on the ground for not going to escalation. And on the other hand, he cannot do anything political vis-a-vis Israel. And that leaves him in a kind of a situation which makes me wonder, is he interested in keeping the status quo as is, just like Benjamin Netanyahu? I mean, there's kind of a very mysterious partnership here. They're both dependent upon each other. They both need each other in order to survive. And maybe because of that, maybe because he understood this weird equation, he keeps the situation as is.
What are the chances that we are talking about maybe a battle that just started happening in the Palestinian Authority, and it's the battle over the head of the Palestinian Authority, over the presidency?
We're in a kind of a period in which there's so many question marks, and I totally agree with what you defined right now, meaning I think this is the end of an era, the end of the era of Mahmoud Abbas. Now, the different future or potential successors are already fighting between themselves. We hear all kinds of accusations and allegations from officials in Fatah, in the Palestinian Authority, against Israel, not because they really dislike Israel, but mainly because they're looking to improve their own political situation. And the question mark is about what will happen, not now. I mean, it's pretty obvious that this situation will continue the next coming days or weeks. The question is what will happen in the next 2 months, 3 months, after December, after January, when President, then again, Mahmoud Abbas will find himself with no solutions, with no real option for his own people or a political horizon. I mean, the negotiations is off the agenda. So what are you going to do right now?
Who are the people who are competing on the seat of the presidency?
None of them will say, I am the future successor. God forbids, they will not mention that. But it seems like there's going to be Saib Arikat there. We'll have Jibril Rajoub, who's back in the headlines about the soccer match between Saudi Arabia and the Palestinian team. And there are many other names. I mean, we've mentioned Mohammed Ahlan before. We've mentioned Majid Faraj, although it seems like Majid Faraj is not going to be one of the candidates. And of course, there's this man in jail, Marwan Barghouti.
So what you're saying is, and what I understand from the current situation, is that Israel right now and the current wave of terror is a card in the hands of those who want to be the next president of the Palestinian Authority.
In a way, yes. I mean, the escalation is part of the ongoing war inside Fatah about what to do and what not to do and who will be the future successor. So you cannot be too moderate, because then immediately they will accuse you of being a collaborator with Israel. You can be more radical, but Abbas doesn't like that, and you still need Abbas in order to support you, if he will still be in the picture, to appoint his future successor. Now, he, in a way, portrays Saib Arikat as the future successor. The problem is that Saib Arikat doesn't really enjoy the support of the other officials in Fatah.
Let's talk a little bit about the article that you published today and about the profile of these new terrorists that we're talking about. And unlike the assumptions that the incitement is coming from the social media, you're saying that now there is a new assumption. It's not from the social media.
Well, first of all, it's not me saying that. It's Israeli investigators that had the chance to sit and to talk with the same terrorists that weren't killed during their operations or were arrested on the way to the operation. And what they found out is that some, or even the majority among those terrorists, didn't have Facebook, for example, or didn't have any electricity at their home to have a computer. So what they found out is that the incitement is like the old school incitement of 1936 of the Faza, meaning it goes around from one man to the other, from the mouth to the ear of the other guy, from the coffee shop to the mosque, to the school, to the university. It's enough that you have some kind of a rumor, then immediately you will find a guy that will go and attack. And what amazed me is that, first of all, sometimes it took them an hour from the moment that they had seen a film, from the moment that they heard a rumor, till the minute that they actually committed the attack. 1 hour only, so it's not a kind of a planned operation. Number two, indication here, or very important thing that we need to mention, is that the refugee camps are not in the picture, meaning we have 74 terrorists. 4 of them were from the refugee camp, 1 specific refugee camp, and this is Shafat. All the others only from the cities and the villages.
The new Arab Spring in the Palestinian Authority?
It might come at the end of the day.
Avi Sachal, thank you very much for this.
Thank you, Lucy.
Forbes magazine released its yearly list of the world's most powerful people, and surprise, surprise, Russian leader Vladimir Putin tops it 2 positions ahead of his U.S. counterpart Barack Obama. Uri Shapira has the story on the new rise of the Vlad.
Not surprising, but still impressive. For the 3rd straight year, Russian President Vladimir Putin has been named by Forbes magazine as the most powerful man in the world. Forbes explained its pick, saying Russia's president continues to prove he's one of the few men in the world powerful enough to do what he wants and get away with it. The magazine highlighted the fact that international sanctions set in place after Putin seized Crimea haven't hurt him one bit. In June, his approval rating reached an all-time high of 89%.
Слава народу победителю! С праздником! С Днем Великой Победы! Ура!
The second person on the list is the most powerful woman in the world, German Chancellor Angela Merkel, who has wielded her influence over the past year by taking an uncompromising approach to the migrant crisis. Merkel also managed to bring about a quick resolution to the Volkswagen scandal, protecting Germany's reputation.
Meine Damen und Herren, Made in Germany ist auch dank der Innovationskraft.
Next up on the list is Barack Obama, President of the United States, which according to Forbes remains the world's greatest economic, cultural, diplomatic, technological and military power. However, Obama slipped 1 spot from last year's ranking. Forbes explained that as Obama enters the final year of his presidency, it's clear his influence is shrinking and it's a bigger struggle than ever to get things done. Other leaders on the list are Pope Francis and Chinese President Xi Jinping, who came in at numbers 4 and 5 respectively. The most powerful businessman, according to Forbes, is Microsoft founder Bill Gates, who came in at number 6. Also notable was the decline of Saudi King Salman bin Abdullah Aziz, once a perennial member of the top 10, who was listed in 14th place. Oh, thus passed the glory of the world.
Yes, and that's it for this part. The director is saying that I'm a little bit angry. I'm not angry. So for now, we're going out for a 2-minute break, and I'll be back with a bigger smile. Don't worry. Investigators begin searching for explosive materials in the wreckage of the Russian aircraft that crashed in Sinai as Egypt's president visits London amid high tensions due to differing assessments of the incident. U.S. Defense Secretary Ashton Carter tours an American warship in the disputed South China Sea, a move Beijing slams as provocation. And Myanmar's opposition leader Aung San Suu Kyi raises the stakes ahead of the country's upcoming historic election, saying she will be, quote, above the president if her party wins. Welcome back to the news today. In a move that infuriated Beijing today, U.S. Defense Secretary Ashton Carter toured an American aircraft carrier transiting the disputed South China Sea. The move, called a provocation by Chinese officials, comes amid heightened tensions in the region. Ellie Ochenberg has more.
The disputed South China Sea continues to be a major flashpoint between Beijing and Washington. U.S. Defense Secretary Ashton Carter visited an American aircraft carrier in the disputed waters Thursday, a move the Chinese slammed as a provocation and a threat to the region's security.
What we oppose is waving the banner of freedom of navigation to push forward the militarization of the South China Sea and even provoke and threaten other countries' sovereignty and security interests. In this respect, we hope the relevant action and intentions of the U.S. can be made more open and transparent.
Carter's tour of Southeast Asia, meant to emphasize America's growing strategic interests in the region, is turning into a sensitive diplomatic issue. China claims most of the strategic South China Sea, through which more than $5 trillion of global trade passes every year. China has been aggressively constructing military and other facilities on artificial islands there. This to the anger of Vietnam, Malaysia, Brunei, the Philippines, and Taiwan, which all have competing claims to the waters. But while Beijing blames the U.S. for inflaming the situation, Carter placed the blame on China, stressing Washington will maintain its naval presence in the Pacific to support other nations and to preserve stability.
Let me just remind you that the presence of U.S. naval vessels in the South China Sea is not new. That's been going on for decades. What's new is dredging and reclamation and militarization. That's what's new this year.
For now, it appears as though China is unwilling to stop or slow down its reclamation projects. This puts Beijing on a collision course with the U.S., which likewise is moving to strengthen its position in the region.
And with me right now via Skype is Martin Himmel, investigative journalist. Good evening.
Hello.
So, Martin, why to provoke if I'm in China's position right now?
Well, it depends. Both sides say the other side is provoking. As far as China is concerned, the United States is provoking because Ashton Carter gets on a very big American naval carrier and puts his presence right in an area which they say is Chinese territory. But the United States feels it has to flex some muscles because the U.S. has been perceived as a weak power in the last while. When it came to the Ukraine, they blinked when it came when Russia invaded Crimea. When Russia started to take certain areas in Donetsk and that part of the Ukraine, they blinked. They have blinked in Syria when they threatened Assad with retaliation when it was discovered they have chemical weapons. They feel they cannot blink when it comes to China. You're talking about $5 trillion worth of trade, the stability of Vietnam, Malaysia, Thailand, many of the tiger countries that are producing wealth. And it's also a major sea route for Japan and Korea to send goods to the West. So they can't afford a blink here. When it comes to the United States, they say that China is causing trouble by building these sand islands.
So, Martin, if we're talking about the pivot, let's say, to Asia and everything that is happening in this area, wasn't it supposed to calm down between these two?
Well, I think there's certain ground rules that they don't want to trespass. I mean, there was just a trade cooperation meeting in Malaysia, and everybody's getting along there because they all realize they have to benefit from trade. And the U.S. and the Chinese chairman visited the United States recently. So in that sense, they're trying to show that there's common interest, but they're on this very issue of sovereignty in the South China Sea. The rules are that they're muscle flexing. They're both showing they don't accept this route, but I think they don't want to get to a point of a war or a shootout between the two sides.
You know, we just were witnessing a big summit between Japan and China and Taiwan and Korea, and I'm trying to understand if this is also signaling to the U.S. that, you know what, we can handle ourselves, or this is a new coalition in case that you will continue doing what you're doing.
Well, actually, I think it's the opposite. I think Japan and Korea are firmly on the U.S. side of this. And Japan raised this issue with China, which sort of caught them by surprise because they say, what's with you in the South China Sea? But Japan's trade goes through the South China Sea, and that's why they're concerned about that territorial issue. So I think it's really putting more pressure on China rather than the United States in meetings like that. China's also sending other signals. For the first time in 66 years, a Chinese head of state met with the Taiwan head of state, which is very new and very encouraging. So you see there's two sets of messages. There's flexibility in diplomacy, and there's a hardening of where China's territory is when it comes to the South China Sea.
Yes, Martin Himmel, thank you very much for this explanation. And we're going to Turkey. Kurdish PKK militants ended a month-old ceasefire in Turkey today, dashing hopes of any let-up in violence in the wake of the national election. The move comes a day after Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan vowed to continue battling the PKK until every last fighter was, quote, liquidated. Some 40 people have died in clashes with the military this week alone in Turkey's restive and mainly Kurdish southeast. Myanmar opposition leader Aung San Suu Kyi said today that she would be, quote, above the president if her party wins a historic election on November 8. The statement places her at odds with the country's military, which drafted a 2008 constitution to preserve its power and effectively exclude her from leading. I-24 News correspondent Ayman Siksik has the details.
Myanmar will conduct general elections on Sunday for the first time since 2011, when the military-backed Union Solidarity and Development Party came to power. But the upcoming election is historic given the potential victory of Aung San Suu Kyi. Myanmar's opposition leader said Thursday she would be, quote, above the president if her National League for Democracy wins the vote.
I've not said we're going to win. I've said if we are win and the NLD forms a government, I will be above the president. It's a very simple message.
Suu Kyi's NLD party won a landslide in the last open election in 1990, but the victory was ignored by the ruling junta. 1 year later, in 1991, Myanmar's opposition leader won the Nobel Peace Prize. But in her homeland, she remained under house arrest for the better part of the next 20 years. Her release in 2002 saw her mobbed by scores of supporters. She was freed after intense international pressure. Her run for power in Myanmar has been welcomed by European leaders as well as the White House.
For a stronger rule of law, for elections that are free, fair, and inclusive, and for continued constitutional changes that will move Burma more fully towards a civilian government.
But Suu Kyi still faces obstacles brought on by years of military rule and cultural tradition. Women hold only 6% of seats in Myanmar's national parliament, less than in any other Southeast Asian country. And in this election, 800 women are running, making up 13% of the total number of candidates. And human rights are a staple of the NLD ideology. And in Myanmar, ending the persecution of the Rohingya Muslims is a priority for Suu Kyi.
I would promise everybody who is living in this country proper protection in accordance with the law and in accordance with the norms of human rights.
Though the leader has not yet made her support of the Rohingya minority clear, her inclusive and peacemaking rhetoric has sparked hope among Myanmar's 1.3 million Muslims that their plight might soon be addressed if Suu Kyi comes to power this Sunday.
And with me here to understand a little bit more about the woman who's leading the opposition is Ayman Siksik, I-24 News correspondent. Good evening.
Good evening, Lucy.
Today we learned a new name, and the name is Aung San Suu Kyi.
Yes.
And who is she?
Well, she made history previously in 1990 when the first multi-party elections were held in Myanmar. That's after 30 years of military rule there, in which no other parties were allowed to participate in free elections. She won by a landslide back then, but the junta, as you know, annulled her victory and kept her under house arrest for the better part of 20 years. She was in and out of house arrest, and they told her several times to leave Myanmar and be free of house arrest, but she she refused. She stayed in Myanmar in her homeland, and now she's hoping to make history again. And as you heard, she made a very, very controversial statement.
Yes.
She said she would be above the president if she's elected. Now, of course, she's not running for president.
But this is some kind of a threat, because if you're running and you are you want to win, you are starting to gather some enemies before you were elected.
Well, analysts are saying that people love her so much that she's trying to give them the impression that if they vote for her party, it's a personal vote for her. So if you want to see me leading this party as the majority in the government, you have to vote for me. But not only does the Constitution not allow the person winning in the elections to become president, she specifically is barred from ever becoming president because she has 2 British children. Her late husband was British, and in Myanmar, the law says that if you have children with foreign nationalities, you can never become president.
And this law was what? Was actually made especially for her?
Well, no, because of the way that Myanmar was under military control for many, many years, there are still several laws that limit freedoms. The Rohingya Muslims, which we talked about in the piece, they still cannot vote. That's over 1.3 million people who ironically depend on her. They want her to win because she's the one talking about including every part of society, keeping them safe from persecution, but they can't vote for her. They can never run for parliament. They still want to see her win. But Myanmar is still dealing with a lot of rules that remain from the junta and military rule that still limit a lot of liberties.
The social climax of, or the climate, I'm sorry, of Myanmar is very interesting as well, because if we're looking also about not only people from different religions, and especially the Muslim religion there, and the Muslim minority there is actually haunted.
It's haunted. It's been haunted for many, many years, persecuted politically, militarily, and they have been marginalized by the extremist Buddhist society there. This is a combination of words that we're not used to hearing, extremist and Buddhist, but it does happen. And that's why Barack Obama is supporting her. As you know, Barack Obama is interested in the U.S. making connections and really associating itself with other supposedly democratic governments around the world. That's why he's doing the same with Cuba and establishing relations for the U.S. And he's hoping to see Suu Kyi rise in Myanmar, as are many, many others.
Myanmar and the Middle East is not that important. Of course. Myanmar, Middle East.
Well, we have Kerry on our side.
Yes, of course, the most important thing. Ayman Siksik, thank you very much for this.
Thank you, Lucy.
Europe's migrant crisis is expected to last for at least another 2 years, according to European Commission estimates released today. Up to 3 million asylum seekers are set to arrive on the continent by the end of 2017. Already, European countries are struggling to cope with the influx. Official figures for Germany show that almost 800,000 people arrived by the end of October. 800,000 people, yes. This week marked the opening of the annual International Web Conference, and among the 30,000 tech visitors is Natalie Ehrlich, host of the I-24 News Economy magazine. She filed the following report.
Welcome to Web Summit, the ultimate stomping ground for techies, robot enthusiasts, and Fortune 500 CTOs from across the globe.
The summit's a great event. It's a huge event, so you really need to look for what you want to get done and focus on that.
30,000 people from 212 nationalities converging in Dublin, Ireland, for 3 days of conferences, networking, and parties.
It's just the biggest one, so in Europe. So basically, it's just like there are more opportunities to meet everyone from all around the world.
Big names in tech tackling the world's biggest topics in tech. Single e-commerce identity, robot ethics, democratizing cloud apps, and why smart homes are so dumb.
And what's really cool, you can message anyone here directly. It's almost like Tinder, but for techies.
Speaking of Tinder, the biggest attraction this year, Sean Rad, president and co-founder of Tinder, also spoke about how his technology is helping people build relationships. And of course, Pepper the robot also drew some attention.
I can listen
to your voice or signs of frustration or happiness. Every day I'm learning and striving to become a better companion.
Still, the conference is not as democratic as one might hope. Make no mistake, this is for the elitist of the elite. Tickets costing as much as 5,000 euros a pop. But for those lucky enough to make it this year, most attendees were energized, a bit exhausted, but mostly inspired.
Yes, Natalie Ehrlich is having a great time there. And we are having a great time here with Lionel Friedfeld. Good evening.
Good evening, Lucy.
You are here to talk about body keyboard.
Exactly. Actually, it's a technology. You know, it's going to be a real revolution. You know, the gigantic company called NEC from Japan is launching a new device which is called Arm Keypad. Basically, you're going to be able to touch your arm and to use it to send email or to make text. You know, they're using the technology. You will have to put not Google, but glasses that looks like Google glasses. You will have to have a smartwatch, and you're going to, be free to do whatever you want.
So basically, it means that we're going to have over all our bodies technology, tech devices.
It is. This time, which is going to be to use the arm, and actually is going to be targeted for professionals like doctors, like the police and different actors like that, because they used to protect their arms, but it's very convenient to actually to type on your arm. So this is going to be a revolution. What is interesting is that Google, Microsoft, Sony, they all investing a lot in augmented reality, and the market is estimated to be $120 billion by 2020.
So what it means, if we're talking about a market that makes it's billions and billions of dollars, what does it mean according, let's say, in the near future? How much, let's say, the industry is going to earn from this?
I think a lot, and definitely is going not to be targeted, to professional, but as soon as it will reach the global consumer, we can say like in a couple of years, instead of holding your cell phone and, you will have your cell phone maybe, in your pocket, and basically you will come up with your hand, write something, and you will send a message, or you will be able also to see on video, because this is of the new technology you're using in a smartwatch.
Lionel Friedfeld, thank you very much for this. Thank you. To many, Rabin is still idealized as the ultimate peacemaker. Some even continue to honor his legacy each and every week. I-24 News correspondent Ur Shapira visited a few of them.
They come here every Friday, no matter the weather or the security situation, to commemorate the memory of Yitzhak Rabin. A small group of people, many of them age 70 and up. It is a gesture to whom they still consider a great leader and even a friend.
It is important for me, not just because the murder, not just because of, his political way, but because he was what we say in Yiddish, a mensch. And I admired him, respected him, and of course trying to follow his steps.
The tradition began right after Rabin's assassination. A simple idea of great meaning, to gather and sing all the Israeli songs.
We decided to come to this place. Back then there wasn't even a monument here, just an empty barrel. So we decided to meet every Friday afternoon to sit and sing the songs that Rabin used to love.
Over the years the group has had its ups and downs, but its founder still believes in this unique initiative.
We will continue to come here to the square until we are the last ones, and the very last one will turn off the lights in the square.
A day later, a very different rally took place at the same site, this time with tens of thousands of attendees and special guests.
That you have to share the future with your neighbors.
However, it seems that memories of Rabin and his legacy are gradually fading. But this small group of individuals will continue to come to the square week after week and to hold their own private commemoration, not just for Yitzhak Rabin, but for a country that once was. Ur Shapira, I-24 News, Tel Aviv.
And Ur Shapira is here with me in the studio. Uri, good evening.
Good evening.
You came back a little bit disappointed.
Yeah, I think I was a little bit depressed. I think, I came back and I thought to myself, this is it.
This is what is left from the peace camp. And in many ways, I think this group of people represent the peace camp much more than the tens of thousands of people who came to the square a day later.
You know, I'm trying to understand that why the left then is, and the people that we saw in your piece are so different than the left that we are seeing today.
I think that in many ways, the Rabin assassination split the country to two, and I think many people felt that they are excluded from the collective memory. People from the left wing and people from the right wing felt that they are the enemy.
Yeah,
in many ways.
They used to walk down the streets, and the people from the left used to blame them. They used to tell them, "You are the one to blame for the assassination of Rabin." But it seems that this group of people that you met is not like that.
It's not like that, but you know, I just thought that you don't see many huge rallies for peace anymore. Actually, I think ever since Rabin was killed, you don't see tens of thousands of people coming out to the streets and demanding peace. I think if 100,000 people will come to the square every week, something maybe can change here in this country.
Yes, I wish. I wish that we will wake up. Ur Shapiro, thank you very much for this.
Thank you.
In sports, it's an extreme shift, but in sports news, Real Madrid striker Karim Benzema admitted in court today that he was involved in a sex tape blackmail plot against fellow France international player. I24 News correspondent Mirav Savir has the details.
French footballer Karim Benzema was charged with conspiracy to blackmail on Thursday as part of an investigation over a sex tape extortion case. The Real Madrid star striker was questioned and put under formal investigation in a Versailles courthouse. He's one of several people involved in an alleged attempt to blackmail fellow French football player Mathieu Valbuena using sex tapes. According to AFP news agency, Benzema, who spent Wednesday night in custody, told investigators he approached Valbuena on behalf of a quote-unquote childhood friend. His lawyer continues to maintain his innocence.
I wanted to vigorously remind everyone, because of the lies that spread while we were in the hearing with the investigating judge, Karim Benzema has not admitted to anything at all. It's alarming to read such things in the press. He maintains his innocence, he wholeheartedly supports his friend Mathieu Valbuena, and has actually also been through similar blackmail attempts. He played no part, and I mean no part, in the blackmail or attempted blackmail.
The conversation in question allegedly happened when the French national team met for training on October 5th. And if guilty, charges carry a prison sentence of 5 to 7 years. Both Benzema and Valbuena were excluded from the French squad named on Thursday for 2 international matches this month.
As far as Mathieu Valbuena is concerned, even if he isn't performing as well right now for his club Lyon, you'll understand that he isn't in the best psychological condition because of this affair. So I decided to let him rest during these 2 very important games.
Benzema is no stranger to controversy. He and fellow footballer Franck Ribéry were charged in a case of sex with an underage prostitute. The charges were eventually dropped in January of 2014.
And right now with me here in the studio is Jonathan Reagan. How are you?
Not bad. How are you?
All good.
All good.
You look a little bit tired today.
It's the end of the week. It's been a long week. Talking football, sports best stuff, the flashes, being here, a lot of work.
And you, Lucy.
And you, Lucy. Are you tired as well?
Yes.
It's the weekend!
It's the weekend!
Yay!
Let's talk about Barcelona.
Barcelona, yes. You know how we always say that politics and sports should not be interfered? Well, not. UEFA, they do not like the fact that at the Barcelona matches, always the flag of Catalonia is being raised. And the team already got 2 fines from UEFA previously for this because they say politics should not be interfered with sports. What did the fans do last night? They handed out 30,000 flags of Catalonia outside the stadium for the fans to wave. They say, you know what, this is our way to express ourselves. Yes, we want to separate from Spain. This is something very, very common in games of Barcelona FC. But Barcelona, the team, is basically the biggest supporter probably of Catalan independence. And they say they're doing that. UEFA will probably fine them, a fine that will not bother them too much, but they do not like sports, politics interfering with sports. As far as the fans are concerned, they will continue to do this again and again and again. As far as they're concerned, that's the way to express themselves.
So good to see that people are fighting except us.
Yes, yes, and I mean, yeah, we're not the only ones fighting.
Yes. Corruption, but somewhere else.
Yes, not FIFA this time. Another big body, the IAAF. It's the world's governing athletic body, and the man who headed this organization up until recently, Lamine Diak, he is now being questioned over charges in which he basically put aside drug tests, doping tests of Russian athletes. Of course, he was being paid for that, meaning you put this aside, we'll pay you whatever you need. Everything is now being questioned. We do not know what will be the outcome of this investigation. But when this comes on behind what is happening in FIFA, what is happening in UEFA, what is happening in a lot of big sporting corporations, this is not the first time the IAAF has been questioned about doping tests recently. Doesn't look good.
Doesn't look good.
No.
It never looks good.
No.
Yeah. Hockey.
Yes, hockey the ancient way. It's a game played by the Incas. And a modern version of it was now played in Cusco. It's a game. It reminds us of the old way to play hockey. This is how the Incas used to play it 400 or 500 years ago when this civilization existed. It was called Gallado. It's basically the same rules. I mean, with a stick, you try to take the ball into something like a goal. Only the ball here is much, much bigger. And I just hope there were no fights at the end. But this is as long as people drink in the end, everything is fine. But this is probably what the game of hockey evolved from. So if we think the indigenous civilizations disappeared, some aspects of them are still with us till this very day.
It's amazing.
It is.
It's beautiful.
It's amazing to think that modern day hockey was actually invented by the Incas.
You know what's more amazing?
What is?
It's the weekend.
Yay! Weekend!
I cannot believe that the weekend is already here, but I'm not going to see you for 2 days.
Oh my God!
But we will see each other.
Should we abolish the weekend then?
Do you want to meet me on the weekend?
Yeah, I would. Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Jonathan Regev.
Thank you, Lucy.
Thank you, Jonathan. Yes, and that's it. We're going out for a small break, an update from our news desk, and then I'll be back for the third part of the news today. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the news today. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is under fire for appointing Ran Baratz, a controversial commentator, as his new media advisor. Eli Ochenberg, diplomatic correspondent for the news today, has the story.
Good afternoon, everybody.
U.S. President Obama is an anti-Semite, and his Secretary of State, Kerry, has the mental capacity of a 12-year-old. No, these are not angry talkbacks, but rather the opinions of the newly appointed media advisor to Israel's premier. Netanyahu, who has made several controversial appointments, is facing yet another political uproar after nominating Ran Baratz, an online commentator, for the high-ranking post. Only hours after the nomination, Baratz came under fire for a wide range of controversial statements written on his Facebook page and his columns for the Hebrew online outlet Midah. According to Baratz, Israeli President Reuven Rivlin can move to Islamic State-controlled areas due to his marginal importance. On March 3rd, the day of Netanyahu's speech to the U.S. Congress about the Iran nuclear deal, Baratz wrote,
Obama's comments on Netanyahu's speech. This is what modern anti-Semitism looks like in Western liberal states, and it is accompanied, of course, with much tolerance and understanding of Islamist anti-Semitism. So much tolerance and understanding that they are even willing to give Iran a nuclear bomb.
In one of his articles last year, Baratz targeted Kerry as well.
This is the time to wish the Secretary of State good luck and to count down the days with the hope that someone over there at the State Department will wake up and begin to see the world through the eyes of a person whose mental age exceeds 12.
Baratz defended his comments, saying they were meant as satire, but this wasn't enough for Israeli President Rivlin, whose office demanded to know whether Netanyahu was previously aware of his new aide's posts. Apparently not. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was not aware of what was written by Ran Baratz and considers them inappropriate remarks. Baratz has since published a formal apology that noted regret for not informing Netanyahu, who himself called such statements unacceptable. However, the premier refused thus far to cancel the nomination. This turmoil comes at a particularly delicate time, only 3 days before Netanyahu travels to Washington for a fence-mending meeting with Obama.
And with me to discuss this is diplomatic correspondent for the News Today, Ali Ochenberg.
Good evening, Lucy.
And it is Thursday, so he is here, Dr. Hani Zubaydah, political science at the Israel Valley Academic College. Good evening.
Good evening.
So there is a question from the audience in the control room, okay? A person who is paying you billions and billions of dollars each and every year, and then you say that he is anti-Semitic.
Well, it's not something no one has ever said before.
It's like, isn't it a reason for this other guy to not like you?
No. What you do is you just hit him for more, 50 billion this time.
Yeah.
You just say 50 billion for the next 10 years.
Mr. Zubaydah, Miss Lucy.
Yes.
Dr. Zubaydah, my apologies. It's a very important day today.
Yes.
This is the birthday of Sarah Netanyahu.
The First Lady.
Oh, so Baratz is going to Baratz is going to be
this
there?
Is her birthday present from her husband.
Yeah.
Ever since Baratz opened his mouth, the only image I have in my head is our president, Ruvi Rivlin, with the parachute going over to Syria. That's the only image I have in my head. And screaming, he's not anti-Semitic, he's not anti-Semitic, they're helping us. Well, it was very odd.
It's, I don't understand really the decisions or the comments that are coming from this government towards the United States administration.
Well, he wasn't nominated officially, we should say that. He was not nominated officially.
What are the chances?
And due to this
he will not be nominated
chaos,
officially.
his nomination is postponed. It will not be brought to the government's approval this Sunday, but only after Netanyahu and Baratz will meet once Netanyahu is back from Washington and clarifies things. But the thing is that Netanyahu seems to be fond of controversial nominations, the latest one being Israel's ambassador to the UN, Danny Danon, also not a very easy person.
But what are the chances that this nomination or this, let's say, it won't happen and it won't be an actual reality like what happened with the police commissioner?
Well, I don't.
Due to
even
pressure.
if it will happen, it will all explode. Let me just remind you: this is not the first the Prime Minister office nominates spokespersons who are controversial. Yoaz Hendel, 3 months on the job, boom, went home. But
Yoaz Hendel went because of let's say disagreements and differences between him and someone who is also celebrating.
He too is not a person who's very careful with his tongue. I'll put it mildly. Again, Netanyahu seems to like people with spice around him.
Yeah,
and
Naftali Bennett, Eshel,
Tzipi Chotoveli, the deputy. No, but the thing is, that, well, you have to remember that with Baratz, the amazing thing is that the Prime Minister office response to the entire ordeal was, well, we didn't know about this, and these things were said before he went into office. And when you want to nominate someone, you do a little research because everybody saw it a day after his name popped up. Because he is extremely controversial.
But what about him? Why he is not deleting all his controversial posts?
Because he's not feeling ashamed. And I must mention that his jokes, whether you agree with them or not, are pretty funny. Like, it's okay to use a satire, especially if you're not a public figure on your Facebook page, on your columns. It's not something forbidden. It is problematic when you get nominated to an official post. But
when you're thinking about nomination, you cannot really say about the President of the United States that he's anti-Semitic.
But I don't think he saw that coming.
That's a no-no. Well, the Prime Minister office should have seen this coming. And right now they're in an ordeal. Benjamin Netanyahu will travel to the United States.
He just asked for $50 billion
during the course of 10 years.
Okay, but if we're talking about this,
$50 billion.
Yes,
and he is going to Washington to meet with Barack Obama,
the
not
anti-Semitic Barack Obama.
and he is going to try to explain to him that his new media advisor said about him that he's anti-Semitic when he's asking for $50 billion.
Commented on that and said that first, such a post is not a portfolio which has a major significance on government's policy, and that this is a decision for Netanyahu to make. They don't seem too excited because of that. But the timing, a few days before Netanyahu is going there to calm everything down with Washington.
Before, I want to go back for the birthday because we need to wish happy birthday.
The big 5'7".
The big 5'7". Oh my God! I hope that she's not watching us right now. 57.
Okay, so she says 5'7".
Honey.
Okay, sorry.
They're going like somebody's going to just
Barat.
Okay. Sarah Netanyahu is celebrating 57 years old. Yes.
Yes. Well. First of all, congratulations.
Congratulations,
First
Mazel
Lady.
Tov, yes.
What can I say? She's been in the spotlight for several years now. She was slammed from all over, just in a just way, in an unjust way. I'm not the one to judge, but she's definitely one of the major decision makers in Israel, and
almost 2 decades.
Yeah,
it is important to say. She was the first lady in '96. The first time she was back then only 36-ish, and she is now probably will be going down history as we speak at this moment. I don't know what the future entails, as the most influential first lady in the history of the state of Israel.
This is what I wanted to ask. I don't remember any first lady in Israel that influenced so much, that was in the media so much, that was controversial so much, like...
Leah Rabin had the opportunity. She was almost there, but it was cut short due to the Rabin assassination. But she was there. She was about to be or become the dominant first lady, but then she became the dominant first widow. But Sarah Netanyahu has a completely different scheme to her. She is not just dominant in terms of saying her mind, which she doesn't a lot, but she's extremely dominant in the first cycle around the prime minister, which is extremely important.
And she nominating people, by the way.
And she is really, really, with all the scandals that we are hearing surrounding her, she is really loved by the people, which is an amazing thing, because I saw her with, a lot of public events, and people love her. This is the most amazing thing, that although she has a lot of scandals on the media, what is the... How come?
Moshe Galamin.
Nobody knows who's Moshe Galamin from our viewers.
He's the guy who was invited to her house to see in what dire situation the prime minister.
He's like a home designer.
Yes. There was this controversial video showing the dreadful state of the Israeli prime minister's house.
Way up.
No, but the thing is that they two, as a couple, present a very strong unity throughout the years. Again, having to deal with a lot of problematic situations, and they want and they are the power couple of our state.
What do you want to speak about now?
We want to speak about the $50 billion. First, let's just say something about the $50 billion. You go and you ask from the President of the United States for $50 billion commitment for 10 years, which he will be able to do. It's not that much of a money for him.
And he will do, by the way.
He will.
No, we need to say that currently the American aid is almost $3 billion a year, and now they want to raise this amount to $5 a year. So it's a significant raise.
As I understood, they want $5 billion on top of the regular for the next 10 years. They're assuming something. Now, the question is, and here goes the question, when you come to ask for this amount, what is the other side expecting from you? And I have tried to look it up. We both were looking up at Huffington Post, other media outlets. We were inquiring with our informants. It seems that as of now, there was only the demand for the money. There was nothing put on the other side. I will not be surprised
if there was something that will be on November.
For instance, and going back to the negotiation table.
And they are going to meet just next week.
Yeah, next week. And Netanyahu will also go to this research facility, which is identified with the Democratic Party, not very, how will I say it, fan crowd of him,
not Republican-y.
Yeah, no. I think Netanyahu really sees the election, and he sees what's going on. Ben Carson is now taking first
He needs
seat.
to reduce tensions with all sides involved, and Obama too wants to end his term with a relatively relaxed situation when it comes to Israel.
What are the chances, and I asked this, what are the chances that before that Bill Clinton with his visit here last week spoke about, let's say, the tension between the two countries, between Israel and the United States, with Benjamin Netanyahu when he saw him?
Well, I think his speech on the ceremony for the memory of Rabin was just the cherry on top of the other things he did. I think he came in with many agendas. One of them was going back to the negotiation table. Bill Clinton does understand that Hillary is going to be heading the Democratic Party to the next American election. He does understand that if she, as the head of the State of Department, will yield some result in putting Israel and the Palestinians to the table prior to the election, that will be a great send-off to his friend, Barack Obama, who sponsored Hillary for 8 years, and a great ticket in for Hillary. So I guess the $50 billion were the ideas that were roaming around here during last week.
Okay, you want to present, both of you, the new Broadway show in Israel?
Cats!
Cats transferred, the Minister of Agriculture. Well,
yes,
the Minister
please,
of Agriculture.
just present it, because
we
it's
are used to hear the name Uri Ariel, the hawkish agriculture minister from the Jewish Home Party, and other context, but this week he made headlines because of his plan. He claims that castrating cats is against the Jewish law. So his solution to this problem, transporting them.
Transferring them to a different country, yes.
Unusually,
all the stray cats, not home cats,
we
not
should
like
say
pets.
that Uri Ariel always had great ideas. For instance, let's not recruit gays into the military.
Wow.
They are a problem, for once. Secondly, when he was the Minister of Housing, he gave tons of the public housing apartments to his friends. He sold them for almost peanuts, and he just let them have it. And now, as the Minister of Agriculture, with the great shape of the Israeli agriculture, he now needs to transfer cats.
But cats are a major problem in Israel.
In Broadway as well.
And, you know, I have to say that usually the word transfer is referred to Arabs. So I have to tell you that
we're heading somewhere.
Maybe these are Arab cats. We don't know yet. We need to inquire that.
Some cats that I spoke with in Arabic, I somehow had a feeling inside that they understand my language.
Ariel is right on the money again.
I'm really happy that at least this time it's not referring to Arabs.
We deserve some fun
and we didn't speak about Oren Khazan and the reason he doesn't want to come to the vote.
No time. Let's finish it with cats.
Yeah, okay.
Cats is the major problem of Israel, ladies and gentlemen.
The Messiah is here.
Of the agricultural Israel.
We are living in Switzerland. Thank you very much for being with me. And we are going out for the weekend, and we'll be back on Sunday from the Jaffa Port, Israel. Have peace. Have a great night. Cats!